I wasn't supposed to see it. The tablet had been left unlocked on the kitchen counter, still open to the last message received. Anton had rushed upstairs, saying he needed to take a call from a client. I had just returned from the grocery store, keys still in one hand and a coffee in the other. I wasn't snooping. Not really. I had nudged the tablet accidentally while setting down the paper bags, and the screen had lit up on its own. But it only took one line to stop me cold. This incompetent will finally embarrass herself. After this deal, I'm done with her. The message was sent to a contact saved as Danica Blueheart. The timestamp showed it was sent just 20 minutes ago, while Anton was supposedly reviewing slides for our pitch meeting with Regal Ventures. I stood frozen, the coffee slowly growing cold in my hand as the weight of the words sank into my chest. I knew that voice. The contempt, the dismissal, the casual cruelty. It didn't sound like a stranger. It sounded like the man I had built a business with, the man I had married. I told myself to walk away. Pretend I never saw it. But my fingers moved before my mind could stop them. I scrolled up. And then I knew. Months of messages. Dozens of late-night conversations between Anton and Danica, his assistant. They didn't even try to hide their intimacy. Her pet names. His promises. The way they laughed at me. She thinks she's leading this pitch. Baby, she has no idea she's already out. Danica had replied with emojis and giddy affirmations. Once we land Regal, she's gone. Just you and me. Clean slate. The bile rose in my throat. Anton and I had founded Polar Strategies together. We were fresh out of grad school, young, scrappy, and convinced we could outwork every firm in Austin. Polar Strategies specialized in high-level corporate consulting, offering strategic planning, crisis management, and business transformation services to Fortune 500 companies. I was the strategist, the operations brain, the client whisperer, the one who stayed up until 3 a.m. refining proposals. Anton was the face. He could charm CEOs, smooth over tensions in boardrooms, and spin a pitch like poetry. It worked until it didn't. Somewhere between our third big client and our 5th year of marriage, the cracks started forming. Long hours, missed anniversaries, his sudden bursts of criticism, the eye rolls in meetings, the way he started crediting me less and less in client reviews. I thought it was stress. I thought we were just in a hard season. But now I saw the truth in black and white. This wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated erasure. I closed the tablet gently, hands trembling, and slid it back exactly where I'd found it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. I started planning. That night, I cooked dinner as usual, pasta primavera, his favorite. I poured the wine. I asked him about the client call, and he lied easily. Sydney's being difficult, he said, swirling his glass. Wants us to make last-minute edits to the cost modeling. I might need to work late tonight. I smiled. Of course. Anything we need to be ready for tomorrow. He leaned back in his chair, relaxed. We're golden. Regal is going to love us. Us. What a lie. I nodded and toasted with him. Inside, I was counting steps. The next morning, I woke up at 6. Anton was already showered and dressed in his favorite navy suit, the one I had picked out for him last Christmas. He kissed my forehead, humming. Big day, he said. Big day, I echoed. While he brewed the coffee, I finished getting ready and double-checked the presentation on my own laptop. Every slide, every stat, every model, they were mine. I had built them from scratch. Anton's only contributions were vague buzzwords and cosmetic transitions. Here you go. He handed me a cup, our matching mugs from a trip to Paris 2 years ago. His smile was too wide. I took a sip. Smooth. Slightly bitter. He walked into the living room to take a call. Danica, I was sure. While he was out of sight, I switched our cups. We arrived at the office at 9:30. The presentation was set for 10:30. I watched Anton rehearse in the conference room, pacing and mumbling under his breath. He looked calm, confident, like someone who believed the next hour would seal the future he had planned. Without me. But I had made other plans. Before sunrise, I had called Raven Baxley, my divorce attorney. She was already reviewing the texts I had forwarded from Anton's tablet. I had also emailed our firm's accountant with an urgent request for financial transparency. There had been gaps in the reporting over the past few months, numbers that didn't quite align with the contracts I had helped secure. I wanted answers, and I had set up a secure recording app on my phone. It was subtle, automatic. Everything from the meeting would be archived. At 10:25, I walked into the conference room with my game face on. Anton nodded approvingly. Ready? I met his gaze. Always. At 10:30 sharp, the video call began. Regal Ventures appeared on the screen. CEO Connor Arley, his COO, and a trio of sharp-eyed investors. Connor smiled. Good morning. We're eager to hear what Polar Strategies has for us. Anton leaned forward. Thank you, Connor. Francesca and I are honored to present something we believe is truly transformative. The first slide went up. Anton's voice was steady. At first. But by the second slide, something shifted. He stumbled slightly over a transition. By slide 3, he was blinking more than usual. He rubbed his temple and paused mid-sentence. Sorry. 1 second. I waited. Silent. Calm. By slide 5, he was visibly sweating. His speech slowed. His thoughts scattered. I'm not sure let me just... He reached for the mouse, fumbled, closed the presentation by accident. Connor raised a brow. Everything all right, Mr. Burton? Anton tried to laugh it off. Sorry, must be a tech glitch. Let us know where you're watching us from. And if you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. You have nothing to lose, and it will mean the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video. I slid my laptop forward, reopened the presentation without a word. Technical hiccups happen, I said smoothly. Let's get back on track. I began to speak. My voice was clear. My points sharp. The investors leaned forward. They listened. Anton slumped slightly in his chair, trying to nod along. His presence was almost irrelevant. By the end, Connor looked directly at me and said, Ms. Burton, your expertise is exactly what we're looking for. Not their expertise. Mine. And that was the moment I knew. They had tried to erase me. But they underestimated the one thing I never outsourced: strategy. After the call with Regal Ventures ended, Connor Arley stayed on the line an extra few minutes. He asked Anton to excuse us, politely, but with a firmness that left no room for discussion. Anton hesitated, still disoriented, then stood and left the room with the posture of a man trying not to limp. Once he was gone, Connor's tone shifted. No longer formal, no longer placating. Francesca, he said, folding his hands. I don't know what that was, but if we're putting our name behind Polar, it's with you at the helm. Not your husband. I met his gaze without blinking. Understood. That was all he needed. No drama. No questions. Just confirmation that the leadership he saw during the presentation wasn't a fluke. Regal would move forward. But from now on, I would be the face. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in quiet maneuvering. While Anton nursed what he later claimed was a migrainous episode, I locked in meetings with our legal counsel. Raven Baxley worked quickly. She was discreet, precise, and ruthless when it mattered. By the end of the first day, she had begun preparing the divorce paperwork. More importantly, she had her forensic team reviewing our business accounts. And just as I suspected, Anton had been draining resources, diverting company funds into a personal slush account, hiding bonuses from recent contracts, and setting up quiet assets under his name alone. His fingerprints were everywhere. I could have confronted him right then, but I didn't. Timing mattered. Leverage mattered more. Meanwhile, I kept my demeanor light at the office. Anton's just taking a few days to recharge, I told the staff. He's been pushing too hard. Some nodded, others looked skeptical. I didn't push it. In the background, I began shifting leadership responsibilities away from him. Client contact lists, login credentials, vendor approvals. No one stopped me. I was the one who handled everything anyway. This time, I was just formalizing what had always been true. Danica, of course, caught on faster than Anton. By Thursday, she started texting me directly. Friendly, then passive-aggressive, then borderline confrontational. Just wondering if you've heard from Anton. He's not answering his messages. Hope everything's okay. I assume there's a reason my account access was changed. Could be a glitch. Let me know if there's a better time to discuss project ownerships going forward. I responded once, politely. Thanks for checking in. All transitions are being coordinated internally. If anything changes, you'll be informed by HR. I copied Raven on the email. That evening, Danica received a formal cease and desist letter for potential breach of confidentiality and business misconduct, pending further investigation. Raven had included copies of texts, dozens of them, from Anton's device. Danica had no room to deny her involvement. Her cheerful bitmojis were time-stamped, traceable, and damning. I didn't need to say another word to her. Friday morning came with an early phone call from our senior accountant, Marcia, a blunt woman who rarely called unless something was on fire. I thought you should know, she said. Anton just tried to move $75,000 from one of the dormant client accounts to a personal account in Colorado. I didn't flinch. Did you stop the transfer? Flagged and frozen. Want me to forward the alert to Raven? Please do. Francesca, she said after a pause. I've been with Polar since year one. You ever need a character witness? Any of us would line up. That was the moment I realized. The people who mattered already knew the truth. Anton tried to call me that afternoon. I didn't answer. He tried again that night. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the texts. We need to talk. It wasn't what you think. Don't make this ugly. We can fix this. You're not thinking clearly. Let's be rational. Each message chipped away at the facade he had built. The charming partner. The poised leader. The visionary executive. I saw none of that now. I saw a man losing control. And I intended to take back everything he'd stolen. Quietly, completely, and with the same precision he once admired in me. By Sunday night, the final pieces were in place. Raven had a bulletproof portfolio of evidence. Anton's embezzlement, his toxicology history, prescriptions for sedatives he'd picked up out of state, and even office security footage showing Danica entering after hours with files she had no clearance to access. We also had something better, silence from their side. Anton hadn't realized just how much evidence I had. He still thought he could negotiate. Danica had gone dark. Her social profiles were private. Her email autoresponder said she was on extended personal leave. I never replied. The final meeting with Regal Ventures was scheduled for Tuesday. This one was in person, Connor Arley flying in with his team to sign the contracts and finalize the deal. And this time, there was no seat at the table for Anton. Tuesday arrived with quiet tension hanging in the air like a storm that refused to break. At 10:15 a.m., the sleek black SUV from Regal Ventures pulled up outside our Austin office. Connor Arley stepped out first, gray suit, calm eyes, and the unmistakable presence of someone used to being the sharpest mind in any room. His COO, Maya Chun, followed, flanked by two senior partners from Regal's legal team. I greeted them in the atrium myself. No Anton. No Danica. Just me leading the ship. This way, I said, guiding them to the executive boardroom that overlooked Lady Bird Lake. The view was intentional. I wanted them to see not just our reach, but our clarity. Inside, the pitch was ready. I had rehearsed it a dozen times, anticipating every question, every technicality. This wasn't just a transaction. It was the culmination of years of groundwork and months of silent war. Connor, I said as he took his seat at the head of the table, thank you for coming in person. We're ready when you are. He nodded once. Let's see what you've built. I clicked the remote, and the first slide appeared. The room dimmed, the light from the projector casting soft outlines across everyone's faces. I began, steady and confident. Polar Strategies has operated at 43% year-over-year growth for the last 3 years. Our retention rate with high-profile clients sits at 91%, and our tech integration pipeline is now 5 months ahead of schedule. Slide after slide, I guided them through our systems, forecasts, proprietary tools, and the newly expanded West Coast operations. Connor's team scribbled notes, exchanged glances, and occasionally whispered, but their body language told me more than words ever could. They were impressed. Halfway through the deck, I paused for questions. Maya looked up. "Where's Anton Burton?" Connor turned slightly at the mention of the name. Calm but deliberate. I didn't flinch. "Anton stepped down from operational leadership last week," I said. "Due to internal matters, the board agreed it was in the company's best interest to continue under sole executive direction." There was no need to elaborate. Let their minds draw the lines. They'd land on the right picture. Connor nodded. "I figured. Thank you for confirming." We moved on. Just as I advanced to the final slide, the door cracked open. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Anton. He stepped in wearing a blazer over a wrinkled button-down, his jaw clenched tight, eyes slightly glassy. There was a hollow arrogance in his voice when he said, "I hope I'm not interrupting." Connor's eyes flicked toward him, then back to me. He didn't say a word. I stayed seated. "You are," I said calmly. Anton chuckled dryly, but it didn't carry. I just thought it might be helpful to have the full leadership present for the final presentation. I stood slowly, meeting him halfway between my seat and the projection screen. "We're done with the presentation, Anton," I said. "But feel free to stay if you'd like to listen." He tried to recover. "Actually, I think I should walk them through our upcoming partnerships in Asia Pacific." "That's my..." "No," I said louder this time and more final. "That won't be necessary." I turned to the projector, clicked the remote again, and reopened the slide deck. "Let's get back on track." Those 5 words fell like a hammer on porcelain. Anton stood there for a moment, unsure if he should sit, speak, leave, or lash out. Then quietly he turned and walked out. Connor didn't smile, but the shift in the room was palpable. He looked to his COO. "Let's proceed with the terms." After the meeting, as the Regal team reviewed contracts in the glass conference room, I stepped into my office and closed the door. I allowed myself one deep breath. Not a sigh, a grounding inhale. It was almost over. Raven had sent me a message earlier in the day confirming the final divorce documents were signed and would be filed with the court in the morning. Toxicology reports, bank statements, asset transfers, all accounted for. There would be no legal loopholes, no room for Anton to spin a narrative in court. In the lobby downstairs, Anton was nowhere to be seen. Good. Let silence be his new reputation. By 4 p.m., Connor and his team were preparing to leave. As we shook hands, he leaned in just slightly and said, "You're not just the future of Polar. You're the future of this industry, Francesca." I've rarely seen a transition handled with such grace under fire. I smiled, genuinely, but without arrogance. "Thank you. I don't believe in fighting battles I've already won." Outside, the clouds had parted. Sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, lighting up the conference table like a spotlight on a stage that had just seen its final act. Except this wasn't an ending. It was the start of something else. Something I was finally building alone. The next morning, I drove in early. Not out of nervousness, but precision. Control. It was time to close the loop. At 8:30 a.m., I walked into the Travis County Clerk's office, handed over the paperwork, and filed for divorce. Irreconcilable differences, backed by undeniable proof. By the time I returned to Polar Strategies headquarters, Raven Baxley had already sent confirmation that all necessary documents had been distributed. She didn't just come prepared, she came armed. Every file was cataloged, time-stamped, encrypted, and verified. Raven's team had gathered toxicology reports tracing sedatives Anton had purchased 6 weeks earlier. Timestamps aligning with the morning he conveniently forgot my conference briefing notes. She'd uncovered forged digital approvals on vendor contracts, Anton's name used to secure illegal side payouts. Even worse, she'd traced 3 of those payments to a private account in Danica's name. It wasn't just sabotage anymore. It was fraud. And we had everything. Regal Ventures finalized the deal by noon. Connor Arley signed the last set of integration contracts with an air of complete certainty. Francesca Burton was now CEO and majority stakeholder of Polar Strategies. There were no speeches, no celebratory photos. Just a handshake and a quiet statement from Connor. You made the right people believe in the right thing. That's how empires last. I nodded, heart steady. That's the only way they should. When the press release went live that afternoon, it was succinct. Regal Ventures is proud to announce a formal partnership and acquisition stake in Polar Strategies, to be led solely by CEO Francesca Burton. This signals a bold new chapter in global consultancy leadership, driven by vision, ethics, and innovation. No mention of Anton. No mention of Danica. Just the future. By the end of the week, the collapse began. Anton's phone calls to vendors went unanswered. His former connections in the industry, conference organizers, executive groups, investment partners, began pulling back quietly. Then not so quietly. A Bloomberg article ran a piece titled Polar Strategies Clean Break: How One CEO Reinvented Her Brand Without Her Husband. The tone was diplomatic, but the subtext was lethal. It noted a strategic removal of internal friction and lauded my methodical clarity in leadership transitions. Anton's name was buried halfway through misspelled. On purpose? Maybe. Maybe not. But I saw it. And I knew he did too. The next blow came 2 weeks later. Danica was still trying to hold on. She posted motivational reels on LinkedIn, curated aesthetics of resilience through adversity, and even announced a solo consulting firm, Crescent Advisory Group. Her website boasted a 3-person team. All fake. That's when I sent the message. A single forwarded file to the Texas Business Ethics Board. Messages between her and Anton detailing my weak points, timestamps from confidential client discussions, and most damning of all, her request that Anton delay Francesca's sleep cycle again before Monday. The language was cruel, deliberate, amateur. I didn't send it with commentary. No framing, no personal attacks, just facts. It was enough. Danica lost her professional license within 10 days. The board sent her a formal notice that her actions violated ethical standards of confidentiality, manipulation, and unlicensed psychological influence. Her Instagram went dark shortly after. Her LinkedIn disappeared. A whisper campaign of disgrace did the rest. Blacklisted. I never spoke publicly. Never posted. Never acknowledged the shift. I simply kept showing up, early, prepared, and 2 steps ahead. Each week, Polar Strategies expanded further. We opened a new satellite office in San Francisco, launched a mentorship program for female consultants, introduced a quarterly client immersion system that drew press from Forbes Women and Harvard Business Review. When Anton tried to dispute my leadership with 2 former board members, they didn't respond to his emails. One of them forwarded his message to me with a simple subject line: "He's burning out." Another week passed. Then 2. I received an anonymous tip from someone at his former alma mater that Anton had applied for a speaking slot at a consulting symposium and was declined. Politely but firmly. Too much risk. Too little credibility. Raven, ever loyal, scheduled a celebratory lunch for just the 2 of us. It was quiet and classy, no toasts, no fanfare. Just her, sliding a final folder across the table. "Just for closure," she said, smiling. I opened it to find the complete asset transfer log. Anton had unknowingly signed over 87% of the joint holdings in exchange for walking away quietly. He hadn't read the fine print when his new attorney, a junior hire from his college buddy's law office, sent it over in a panic. Desperation makes poor readers. It was done. I stood by the window that night, sipping tea from the same cobalt blue mug Danica used to mock me for. "She's so plain," I remembered Danica saying once at a retreat. "Even her coffee cups are beige on the inside." She was wrong. There was color in everything I chose. There was fire in what looked like stillness. I never raised my voice. Never made a scene. But while they played dirty, I played long. And I never missed. In the distance, Austin glowed. The skyline shimmered, glass towers layered with opportunity and silence. Down below, people hustled through crosswalks, unaware of the quiet battles being won behind closed doors and clean boardroom tables. I wasn't looking for applause, just the absence of noise. That, to me, meant peace. Let them burn their own world down. I didn't have to strike the match. I just had to make sure I wasn't anywhere near the ashes when they did. The mid-morning light spilled across the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, painting the walls in soft gold. Downtown Austin stretched beyond the glass like a mosaic of motion. Cars gliding over bridges, cyclists weaving between morning traffic, coffee carts and business deals in motion below. 6 months had passed since the Regal Ventures presentation. 6 months since the slide deck Anton had rehearsed slipped from his hands, and mine changed everything. Now, I sat at the head of a sleek marble table in Polar Strategy's new headquarters, an entire floor in the high-rise overlooking Lady Bird Lake. Fresh eucalyptus filled the air, part of a small office ritual I'd adopted. Clear scent, clear focus. In front of me, the Q2 results glowed from my laptop screen. Regal Ventures had exceeded all projections. Logistics costs down 12%. Shipping times trimmed by 17%. Employee turnover in their operations division had dropped to record lows. They credited cultural recalibration, language from the very report my team submitted last quarter. Our client satisfaction index? 98%. And we'd just signed 2 new Fortune 100 contracts, each projected to bring in over $5 million annually. One of them, a shipping conglomerate based in Chicago, had found us through the Regal success story. The other, a major tech retailer that had once been Anton's white whale. Poetic, really. I scrolled down through the final page of the report and clicked approve to send it to our internal comms team. The data would be distilled into a case study, polished for our new site launch. Outside my office, my assistant passed with 2 lattes in hand. One for her, one for someone else down the hall. I watched her for a second, not suspicious, just aware. Not everyone was Anton, but lessons leave imprints like scars beneath the skin. You don't forget how you got them. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Raven Baxley. Denver. He's in Denver. Roommate's sister saw him working part-time in shipping for a rental company. No formal job. No more LLC. Guessing he's off the grid. Anton. It wasn't morbid curiosity that kept me updated on his whereabouts. It was pattern recognition. Anton had never known how to fail quietly. I half expected a dramatic return, a rebrand, a Medium article dripping with self-pity. But that never came. Instead, he disappeared. Last I heard before Raven's message, he was hopping between startup meetups, trying to revive connections with people who had long since moved on. He'd been removed from 2 speaking panels. Neither conference offered an explanation. They just quietly updated the schedule. It was as if the industry had decided, we're done here. I set my phone down and turned to my second screen, where hiring projections were being finalized. We'd grown 40% since January. 5 new analysts. 2 new directors. A research intern who might one day replace me. Polar wasn't just surviving. It was building. I stood and walked toward the glass wall. My reflection met me, strong shoulders, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. Intentional choices. Everything about me now was deliberate, stripped of the performative softness I'd once thought necessary to make others comfortable. Comfort had been a distraction. A knock tapped lightly at the door. I turned. It was Nor, my operations lead. Got a minute? Always. She stepped in, tablet in hand, and pulled up the week's rollout plan. We spoke for 10 minutes, targets, task lists, timelines. I offered feedback. She noted changes. Her style reminded me of myself 5 years ago, sharp, quiet, hungry. Before she left, she hesitated. I don't mean to pry, she said, but do you ever regret how it ended? With Anton. I looked at her carefully, nor didn't ask idly. She wasn't gossiping. She was weighing something deeper, perhaps wondering if my silence had been strength or self-protection. I don't regret ending it, I said. I regret how long I pretended it was working. She nodded slowly. Thank you. That helps. After she left, I sat again, that conversation lingering in the air. Did I regret it? No. Regret implies error, miscalculation. But everything that unfolded, the presentation, the fallout, the silence, it had all been strategy. Not vengeance. Not even justice. Just the right moves at the right time. I remembered the first night I caught Danica's name on Anton's phone. The faux innocent laughter over wine, the dismissive glances in meetings, the subtle gaslighting that followed every success I had. Anton had taught me how to smile while betraying someone. And I'd learned. Danica, by all accounts, had vanished from LinkedIn. No profiles. No affiliations. A whisper told me she'd left the state entirely. Possibly moved to Phoenix, where her cousin owned a nail salon chain. Not a word from her since. They had both imagined themselves architects of a power play. But they misunderstood power entirely. Power wasn't volume, or presence, or even position. It was leverage, timing, control, clarity. They mistook silence for passivity. I made silence my strategy. I minimized the theatrics, kept the story clean, refused the press inquiries, declined the podcast interviews. I didn't need to control the narrative because I controlled the results. And now I could walk into any boardroom in Austin, or DC or LA, and be recognized not as Anton Burton's wife, but as Francesca Burton's CEO. Strategist. Closer. I swiveled slightly in my chair, watching a hawk circle far above the skyline. One of my favorite quotes floated back to me, something I'd written in a college notebook. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. But I had gone further. I hadn't become like Anton. I had become better, more surgical, more strategic, more honest with myself. I pulled out a small leather-bound journal from the drawer beneath my desk, a private practice I'd restarted recently. Just a few lines a day. Not goals or gratitude, just thoughts. Anchor points. Today I wrote, Anton taught me one final lesson. Never trust the hand that serves your coffee. But more importantly, always know which cup is yours. I closed the journal and placed it back in the drawer, sealing it with a click. Across the hall, my team buzzed with energy. Polar's rebrand campaign was set to launch that Friday. A sleek, assertive new color palette. Updated mission statement. Highlight reels of our biggest turnarounds. No dramatics, just excellence. My name would be at the bottom of the first public letter on our site. We build systems that don't just recover. We build systems that win. Francesca Burton, founder and CEO. And as for Anton, he'd built a trap for someone else and walked straight into it himself. I didn't mourn the ashes. I simply built something better from them. So that's how it unfolded. No screaming, no chaos, just contracts, silence, and strategy. So tell me, if someone tried to sink your career, would you fight back loud? Or win quietly like I did? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. Some power moves don't make noise, they make history.